guys for being here to the kickoff episode of Moms Unleashed. We all have our beverages of choice in our hands to help with our mental health, which is not necessarily a great or recommended coping mechanism. But yeah, I want to dig in today to mental health, motherhood, the world of social media, because I feel like that has a huge impact on new moms especially. I find as a mom of 3, I give less craps about what I see on social media and comparing myself to it. But as a new mom, it destroyed me. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something really important to touch on. I guess let's just start by like out of all of us, who of us had mental health struggles before we became moms? Were you aware of it? Like, did you know about it?
Yeah.
Yeah? No?
It didn't have a name.
It didn't have a name.
Yeah.
But you knew like something was off. Yeah.
They tried to give it a name, but it wasn't really the right name.
Yeah.
At first, yeah.
So I was in first year university. I was prescribed Prozac, without understanding what the hell was going on. Like, I thought I was away from my Italian mother for the first time, and like no one was making me food or making my bed and doing my laundry, and I was really sad. And they're like, here, have some Prozac and like you should feel better. And I never took it, and I just spiraled. I think I was in a challenging relationship during university, and Alex and I have talked about that on her podcast, and it just did not set me up for success by the time I became a mom. And after my second pregnancy, just like you, Libby, like I hit a downward spiral, and was planning suicide. Like, that's kind of the point that I got to, which was really heavy. So yeah, if we want to kick it off there,
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Go for it. Go for it.
When you went to your doctors, what did you bring to them? Like, what were you saying to them? Like, did you understand how you felt, or did they just kind of guess and prescribe that to you?
No, I had no idea what was going on. I just knew that I was really unhappy. I became very paranoid, which is not something that I've experienced after having kids. I remember going into my dorm room, and I would have to like triple check, like it was almost like OCD, triple check that the door was locked, look under my bed, look in the closets, make sure no one was coming to get me. And that's kind of what led to the Prozac prescription. My experience in motherhood was completely different and more dark. The demons, a lot of self-hatred. But that was my kind of first exposure to the fact that I was struggling with my mental health.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know for me, when I eventually realized that it was depression that I was dealing with, I was so frustrated that no one had talked about the different ways it can manifest. Because to me, when we were talked to about, you could experience postpartum depression, you might be sad, you might not want to eat, you might have trouble sleeping, like all those like typical depression symptoms I didn't really have. Like, I wanted to eat all the time.
Yeah.
Because I was like coping with my depression.
Yeah.
And I was just pissed off at the world. I was mad that my husband got to go to work. I was mad that my toddler still needed me. I was mad that my newborn wouldn't eat or wouldn't sleep. I was mad that my friends didn't have kids. I was mad at my friends who had older kids. Like, I was pissed off at everyone and then mad at myself that I was mad at everyone, and then felt guilty about it. And it was this whole spiral. And I think I suffered for longer before getting help, because number one, it's like, at what point do you decide, like, this is just baby blues, this is just adjusting to another baby, or like, this is depression? And nobody told me that like rage or anger could be like a major symptom of depression.
So that's
I
the way
didn't cry. I was pissed.
Yours presented as rage.
Yeah.
Mine too.
Rage was
all
so
rage.
angry.
Paramount.
So
Pure rage.
angry. Yeah. I broke bottles. I threw bottles down the stairs and broke them on the wall. I
Yeah.
was so angry, and I couldn't figure out why. And I'm so angry. Yeah.
And the shame that comes with it, right?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not just that you're sad and people are like, oh, it's okay. It's like, you're mad and then you're ashamed of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had a lot of postpartum rage with my second. With my first, it was postpartum anxiety. And what you said about like getting mad at everybody around you, because then I'd be like, I'm so selfish. Like, how could I dare get mad at this person? They're being so helpful. And then I felt selfish and I felt so guilty about that. But I couldn't help it. And the anxiety would manifest in ways like I'm just those intrusive thoughts that you get,
Yeah.
like not just about your kids, but about my marriage, everything. And it was really, really scary. So when you initially asked Annie, who had dealt with mental health issues prior to having kids, am I the only one that didn't put up my hand, or who else did not?
I kind of did, because I know, looking back, I 100% know that I did, but didn't know it. I was never in a safe conversation to talk about it. And like you said, there's no language surrounding it. So once I became a mother, I tried to set myself up for success in so many ways to control what the potentials could be. But, it just creeps up and grabs you.
Yeah, well, and that's what happened. So I had never dealt with mental health issues. I'm a very flexible, easygoing person. I like to just cruise and just be on a happy little autopilot and just literally skip down the street. That is my MO, okay? I want to look like Pamela Anderson and skip down the street. That's my MO. And I'm not doing a good job, but anyway, when I first got hit with postpartum anxiety, and I think even before that, during pregnancy, I was dealing with a lot of emotions. I have lupus, and that can be I had terrible pregnancies, hated pregnancy. Yeah. I can get into that later, but that brought out a lot. I was crying myself to sleep every night, and now looking back, I'm like, oh, maybe that was kind of the lead in to my postpartum anxiety and then postpartum rage that I felt later on. But it hit me like a bus.
Oh yeah.
I had not ever having dealt with mental health issues before. I didn't have any coping mechanisms. Had no idea how to feel. Had no idea how to talk to the people in my life about how I was feeling. And that was so scary and so isolating. So isolating.
One of the biggest things that I always tell people is, and from my experience too, whenever I would have really bad anxiety, and for the first 2 weeks after Milo was born, every night when the sun started to go down, I would just start bawling my eyes out. Uncontrollable anxiety. I had no idea why. Milo was sound asleep in his bassinet. We're just watching Jeopardy. And I just start bawling. And my husband's like, are you okay? What's going on? I'm like, I don't know. I'm so anxious. It feels like the world is ending.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are uncomfortable, or like you were saying, it's difficult to understand how to talk to people in your life when you're going through that. But that's the number one thing that helps me is verbalizing it to someone. Yeah. As soon as I get those feelings, or I'm irritable, right away to my husband, I don't feel well.
Are you guys angry texters? Do you?
Oh,
anytime I'm
no.
I'll text my husband and be like,
rage.
"This is bullshit."
The rage text. Oh, my
Yeah.
husband knows
Yeah.
every emotion I
Yeah.
feel all day long.
Yeah.
It's texting all day.
But I feel like it takes some of the air out of it when you just verbalize it to someone. Okay, I'm dealing with stuff, and I feel for people who are maybe not in a situation where they can share that.
Yeah.
Because it is really helpful. And then my husband knows, even though he doesn't understand it because he's never experienced anxiety in his life, he knows, okay, I can take over, I can do you need to go lay down or whatever. So telling someone and being open about it is
it almost brings you into the present. It tells you what you know, what is happening, because I feel with my anxiety, it's the inevitable. Anything can happen at any point. And when you talk about it, or you recognize that, it kind of brings in another perspective of calming. Here you are now. This is what's happening. This is what is true. This is what is not true. This is what is not happening. It grounds you.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I for so long equated my worth and my character with how I was feeling. So if I was feeling angry, then I felt horrible about myself. And then I would go down this cycle of just shame and guilt and all of those things. And I saw it as a reflection on me. And making that switch to this is something I'm feeling and this is something I'm experiencing and this is not who I am was important. And then that helped me to, when I was having a moment, instead of, just verbal diarrhea, on my husband about all my feelings, I would say, I'm not feeling well. And like, so maybe it's not physical, but I am not feeling well. I'm going to go lay down.
Yeah.
And it's not a thing of, I'm a horrible person, so I need a break from my kids because I can't handle it because I'm a bad mom. It's, I don't feel well, so I need a break. And anyone who isn't feeling well deserves a break.
Yeah.
I have a question for all you guys because I think that you have better tools than me. I have zero tools. I am so bad at not being happy. Like, I'm really bad at it. And I have a hard time, like, I run away from situations if they are unpleasant. And I'm just like, okay, peace. Like, every person I ever dated before my husband, the second something got, like, a little bit rocky, even after, like, several years, I'd be like, okay, like, bye. And I'd, like, make a date that night and just get over it and just be gone.
Wow. Yeah.
Total avoidance, did not want to feel anything. Like, anything negative. Only wanted to feel good all the time. And so now, like, in dealing with anything that I've dealt with in parenthood, which started in pregnancy, it's either crying myself to sleep or just shutting down and being quiet and not talking. I've tried therapy twice. I hated it. Like, it's always therapy, and I suggest to people, if they're like, what should I do? I'm like, oh, go see a therapist.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Yeah.
But did you connect with your therapist?
I was like, okay, I'm going to tell you all of the things that could be problematic in my life, starting with when I was like 12, and then I just sat there and verbal diarrhea for 40 minutes and told her every little thing between me and my husband, every little thing between me and my kids, every little thing between me and my parents. And they're just like, okay, please tell me what to do. And I was like, there's literally nothing we have to dig at. Like,
Yeah.
there's everything. Just tell me what to do. And then she's like, well, let's schedule back next week. And I was like, you just want my money.
Yeah.
But I know that's not the case, so I guess there was a lack of connection. So I was curious from all of you, what tools you have. Like, selfishly, I want to know how to cope better because
Mine are
I'm
good
still
tools.
going through this.
Mine are good tools. I eat. I head to the snack cupboard and I eat.
Well, I am really good at giving myself grace
Mhm.
because, like we were saying, you react to something in a way that is not the best, and then you feel guilt. You throw the bottles. You, like me, like I've like punched my son's mattress, not my son, his mattress. Like, get so angry, like slam the door, and
Yeah.
my husband never has those reactions. And so I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, why do I react this way? But it's almost like you're out of control in those situations. Like, it gets so intense.
Yeah.
And then that is the release, is like slamming the door, you know, throwing something. And so I give myself a lot of grace. I'm like, wow, that was a really difficult situation. I didn't handle it the way that I wish I would have. You know, in the future, maybe I could try these tools or whatever.
How did you get there though? Like, how did you get to the point where you could give yourself grace?
Because I don't know if it's my background in psychology, but I'm just like, I'm a human person.
Yeah.
And life is hard, and having kids is hard. And what we see, like people's highlight reel on social media, like that is not real life. And whenever I'm going through something, in the back of my mind, I'm like, everybody else is going through the same thing. I don't think that it's just me.
No.
And I never have been that way. Like, I think I'm pretty awesome. And like, I'm a really good mom. And so when I have these difficult moments, I'm like, yeah, that really sucked, but I'm going to repair it with Milo. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it with my husband, probably cry to him. But it's not going to be the last time that it happens.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to happen again because I'm a human.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people like have this myth that if you do life right, there's not going to be struggle. Right? And the reality is that life is just hard. And emotions are going to happen to literally every person. You're going to be sad, you're going to be angry, you're going to have these different negative emotions. I know for me, you know, for the first part of my 20s before I had kids, I felt like I was doing awesome. Like, I grew up in a really traumatic environment, and I was so proud of the fact that like things just like rolled off my back. And it like hit me like a ton of bricks when I became a mom, and I had all these negative feelings, and I had to get to a place where I was like, I'm not having these negative feelings because there's something wrong with me, or it's just because of my past, or it's just because of this, or it's a problem that I can fix. Sometimes you just have a crappy day. Sometimes you're just sad. Sometimes you're just mad. And getting to a point where I accepted the negative feelings instead of just trying to avoid them and lock them in a closet was it for me.
Yeah.
And like even now, like I naturally, like my negative emotion like default is anger. But like yesterday, literally, for example, I cried for the first time in like a year. And I was with a friend and then she's like, oh, I feel so bad. I'm like, no, that was actually like, that's good for me.
Yeah,
like
cathartic.
it is hard for me to cry because I either lock it away or I get mad and take it out of my family. So the fact that I could like actually release it and then drive home with a sad song and push myself to cry was like, that's a breakthrough. And I think it just comes to a point where it's like you have to give yourself grace, know you're human, and let yourself feel things.
Yeah.
Let yourself know that you're human, know that it's okay that you're crying, that it's not something that has to be fixed or has to be put in a closet. It's just that's how you feel right now, and feelings never last forever.
I was listening to a podcast by Glennon Doyle on the drive over here this morning, and I'm obsessed with her.
Yes,
like I
she's
love her so much. And she was talking about pain and how like if you don't feel like feeling pain is part of living, like, and if you're trying to protect yourself from pain, it only makes the pain that much harder. So our job as parents isn't to protect our children from pain, it's to allow them to see it and learn how to navigate through that pain, because then it sets them up for success. And I think it's the same thing for moms. Like if we allow ourselves to feel that pain instead of suppressing it, then that helps us get through our feelings and figure out what is going on, what are we actually struggling with. And for me, I feel like my first pregnancy was high risk. We thought we were going to lose our son for 28 weeks. We had a whole bunch of genetic flags and markers. So I kind of detached myself a little bit, and I was like, if I lose my son, then I'm putting this protective barrier up. Everything ended up being okay, and he was healthy, but then he wouldn't latch. So the expectation that he was supposed to latch and that pregnancy was supposed to be perfect, and I didn't allow myself to feel any of the emotions that came along with those disappointments. And I also had a ton of voids from my childhood and as a teenager and a young woman of like giving away pieces of myself to either friends or relationships. And I was like, a kid will fix this. Like a kid's gonna fill my void and fix that pain. And then it all just bubbled to the surface and I exploded, because kids don't give you time to deal with pain, right? So that's when I like overflowed and became a volcano. And like the thing that did it for me was Kate Spade took her life right after I had my second son. And I turned to my husband because I had like, my mind had been stewing about those types of things during the pregnancy. And I was like, what happened? Like, what point do you get to where you go from thinking about it to actually doing it? What's that line? And am I close to crossing it? And will I be able to stop myself when I get there? And that was like the scary thing for me, that I was like, okay, I need medication, I need help, I need a team, I need to figure this out, because I have kids now. Like I can't just, bye guys, you know, like I just, and it was scary for me. Kate Spade was like my wake up call, which is bizarre.
Well, that's a huge emotion. And I think it's so brave to say, okay, this is where I'm at. And I don't know if I'm close to that line.
Yeah.
I might be, I don't know. And I think it is so brave to say, I need to go beyond and ask for help, because there is so much stigma. And like, even when I was saying, hey, like I think I have postpartum rage, I think I have postpartum anxiety, or when I was crying myself to sleep every night during my pregnancies, I was so like beyond my husband, I was so nervous to talk about it. And doing it online, like, and I know a few of us share very openly online, that was very cathartic because it felt anonymous, even though it was to more people that I could ever imagine talking to. But same with you, my pregnancies were high risk. I have lupus, so autoimmune, automatically high risk. And in like 2% of women with lupus, your antibodies cross over the placenta to the kid. So I, of course, was in that percentage. So it's like every week there was a new fear of losing the baby. So and of course I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, like was it irresponsible to get pregnant? Like I'm gonna put a kid through this and can I handle it? Like am I gonna be too sick? And then of course like my symptoms were, all the pregnancy symptoms were totally exacerbated for me with lupus. And it was so scary. And then when you talked about it, like talk to anybody who had a kid 10 years ago. They go, oh, I loved being pregnant. It was so beautiful. And a lot of women do, and pregnancy is so beautiful, and I love moments of it. But I did not speak to one person who was like, oh, pregnancy
Oh,
was
yeah.
hard. Oh, it was hell. Oh, lightning crotch. You're going to
Yeah.
experience
Oh my God.
not a single person.
So true.
So the difficulty of pregnancy, that was an awakening for me, and that was scary. And I was like, oh, like I thought this was supposed to be like the nice part. I was supposed to be like decorating a nursery and like talking about baby names with my husband.
No, it's miserable.
It can be
I'm
so
miserable.
miserable. yeah.
Pregnant right here,
Yeah.
chiming
How
in.
very miserable. How far along are you?
30 weeks.
Oh, you're like
Wow.
home run.
I hope, yeah.
Good. Do
Yeah.
as
So
little as
done.
possible.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just like a matter of making space for different people's experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And so we talk about expectations, and you know, some of the reasons we face the biggest disappointment is when our expectations aren't met.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think social media is helping in ways where we're talking about hard things, but for many of us, these hard things weren't talked about before. So we have these expectations out of nowhere. And so I have had to get to a place where I'm like, so my pregnancies I loved, and they were great. That doesn't mean that I'm a better person. That just means that I liked being pregnant. My like early motherhood was really hard. That doesn't mean I'm a terrible person. That's just my experience. I think as women, from the women I speak to, we tend to just take these negative experiences and apply them to who we are and what our worth is. We don't do that with the positive ones, right?
Yeah.
We only do them with the negative ones. We go into the cycle, and I think it's just like sometimes like stepping back and getting this bird's eye view of like, that was easy for her, it's hard for me. It's not a reflection on either of our characters, and being open about it. And I think social media does help, but there's still a long way to go. Every time, like we talk about being in this fishbowl, right? And sometimes I feel like I'm in a fishbowl because the people who follow me align with the things I talk about, which are mental health and trauma and the effect we have on our kids and all of that. And I can feel like everyone gets it.
Yeah.
And then you get a viral video and you're like,
Oh.
people don't get it.
Yeah.
Right? There's still people struggling with
Yeah.
so much of their like mindset stuff,
But
and
also-
like not giving themselves or other people
No,
grace.
I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with women speaking about how difficult being a mom is. Because no, we're supposed to love this. This is supposed to be the best time of our life.
Suffering.
What is the world going to come to if moms are having a difficult time, right?
Right.
And people are uncomfortable by it, and oftentimes it's other women who are uncomfortable.
Well, and I often wonder, did those women have a hard time and they're so
Usually.
upset that they didn't have a safe place to do the same thing, so
Yeah.
they're now coming and saying, how dare you?
Yeah.
I didn't get to say it was hard.
Yeah.
You don't get to say it's hard either.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever get men creeping up on your posts though? 'Cause
Always.
one guy was just like, oh, moms of this decade, they don't hit their kids the way they're supposed to and they're so misbehaved. Like, you need to be hitting your kids more. And I was like, okay, so first
That's
of all,
gonna
bye.
solve everything.
yeah. I was like, okay, well, there's where your problems are stemming from. And like, I literally, it was one of those ones where I had to screenshot it and like send it to people and be like, I should be mad about this, right? Like, this is ridiculous. But yeah, I find like you get some of the most ridiculous comments from people when you put yourself out there.
But that's great
Yeah.
because then you video reply.
Yeah.
And the best part of that is showcasing what kind of feedback we get
Yeah.
and giving a reply to it.
Yeah.
So that other women out
You're good
there
at
who
that.
are feeling the same thing as us but don't have a voice
Yeah.
and are uncomfortable, saying these things, they can be like, oh, like, my mother-in-law always says that to me and it pisses me off, and look at how she's responding to it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I feel better now. Like,
That's how I found you on social media, is when you replied to that post, and I was raging for like a week. I was saying it to all my girlfriends. It was like, you only get 4 years, and I was like,
Is this the 18 summers thing?
that too drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I did one about that.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Oh,
Okay.
fuck yeah.
Yeah. I was raging out, sending it to all my girlfriends, being like, if you are watching this and you feel guilty, fuck that. I was so mad, and I was like, then you came out with this like beautiful like objection to it, and I looked at my husband and I was like, mine would have been way more angrier, but this is how I feel.
Yeah.
Because you see this online, you follow all of these accounts that make you think that you should be feeling this, and automatically you feel shame and guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, it doesn't do anyone a service to feel shame and guilt, right? Does that
No.
help you to be a better mom? No, it just makes you self-loathe and disassociate, and then just like go into this negative spiral.
Yeah.
And so many, I feel like, women and moms feel in a similar way, but they don't have the confidence to maybe say it publicly. And I think in general, just as women, you think about the corporate world, you think about in our families, you think about in society in general, women are told to just be friendly, be a people pleaser, like be nice, be easy to get along with, don't say anything that rocks the boat, don't say anything is unfair, and then you'll be likable. And then what happens is you just end up living in like shame and guilt, and then you feel like you're the only one. Like I can't count the number of times I've made a video where in the past I felt like it was something I'm alone in, and like literally thousands of people would be like, same.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, I think, which is women are being told, mothers are being told. You're being told there's like a meme. You're being told you're a superhero, but it's like, I don't want to be a superhero. Give me a night off.
Yeah.
I don't want to do all this. You're being told, like, when I was, my first was, who's 4 now, she was like breastfeeding, newborn, would not sleep. And I was counting down the weeks until I was like allowed to sleep train her.
Yeah.
And everybody just telling me how to feel. Just appreciate it. Just be one with it, because you know what? This doesn't last forever. I don't care. I know it will
like
pass.
my least favorite.
Enjoy
It's like,
it, because then this will happen.
I was-
Enjoy it while you can. Enjoy this. It's like,
No, I was so
I'm not.
sleep deprived. It was making me resent so much in my life, so much beauty in my life. And I was missing out on things because I was just being told to enjoy it. And I'm like, I can't enjoy it. What do I do? And I was having this huge internal struggle. And I just wish people would listen, stop telling me things as a woman, as a mother, and listen to me. Have a cathartic conversation with me and allow me to just feel what I'm feeling, and then maybe I'll find more beauty in everything going on.
Yeah.
My son's like first year of life, I feel like it just I missed it. Like it's gone.
Yeah.
Because I was so miserable and so unhappy. I got to the point where I was at that line.
Yeah.
If my husband wouldn't have come home and like blocked my car in the driveway, I'm gonna cry. I would have gone like over the line. It took one doctor actually like listening to me and like saying, okay, this is what I think is actually happening. Let's try new medication. Let's try this. And then, like, I feel like I got my son back and got, like, my life back.
Yeah. Do you feel, because I feel like I have huge regrets for not getting help sooner. I have huge regrets for being depressed. I have huge regrets. I love my second son, but I got pregnant 8 months postpartum. It was a birthday gift to my husband, and, like, we had sex and got pregnant. And I just, like, I beat myself up for it. I beat myself up that I feel like I missed so much. And then my oldest son is neurodiverse, which is not my fault, but I blame myself for it. I'm like, if I had gotten help for my postpartum depression, would he have felt more loved? Would he have had more confidence? Would he have? And I have, like, I don't think that's ever something I'm going to get over, is not getting help sooner. Yeah.
I think that also becomes a thing of allowing yourself to grieve. Because it's grief.
It is.
Grief is loss, and you lost out on that time. Like, I think of the first 2.5 years of my son's life, and there's many parts I don't remember. There's parts I remember just staring at the ceiling, and like I can like hear like an echo of their laughter and my husband playing with them, and I am just like spaced out.
Yeah.
And I was not in the moment, and I didn't get to enjoy it. And then I didn't get to enjoy my daughter being 2 while my son was a baby, because I was so exhausted, and I just grieved that stage that I didn't get to soak up, and I didn't get to enjoy the moment, and I didn't get to do those things. And it wasn't because I was choosing not to, it's because my mental health was so bad and I was so sleep deprived that I couldn't. And so then it's harder when older women or older mothers who have been there before say enjoy it, and you're like, do you know how badly I want to enjoy it? Or do you know how badly I wanted to enjoy it? And I couldn't, and now it's just allowing that grief to come through and not just shoving it away and say that's what it was, but it's like, no, we're going to allow ourselves to grieve this because it is hard and you did lose out on something.
Oh, for sure. I literally sent my book to a child psychologist, and I was like, can you read through this for me and make sure when my kids are old enough to read this that they don't take any of this personally? Because on one hand, I need to be honest about what it means to be a mother, because everyone thinks motherhood is going to be the one thing in life that fulfills you, and it's not. Like, there is not one sole thing in life that's going to fulfill you. But when my kids read this, are they going to be like, my mom is fucked?
I struggle with this all the time because I podcast, and a lot of what I talk about are specific situations that I have gone through with my husband, with Milo, and like the family dynamic, and then I talk more broadly about it as well, but I always think about that because it's like, but at the end of the day, like if you don't put that out there, you're just perpetuating the idea that everything is perfect. So if my son grows up and he's like, oh wow, like maybe he will have a different view, like if he grows up and ends up marrying a woman and she becomes a mom, like he's gonna have that knowledge with him.
I hope so. I hope that we're setting our kids up for success in parenthood, and I hope that if they are not meant to be parents or don't want to be parents, that they don't feel the pressure to become parents. Because I think, like, for example, this child psychologist that read my book right now is not a mom. She's in our age group, and she was just like, I have felt like I have needed a kid to make my life complete. And she's like, reading your book made me realize I don't. And I was like, I think a lot of people feel that way, and a lot of people who shouldn't become parents do, because they think that's what you're supposed to do. And like, kids make our voids and traumas from our childhood harder. It's not their fault, but when you need to lay in bed for the day, which I do often, I have now like put snacks in my bedside table because I don't want to go downstairs and like be called to mom while I'm not good. Like, it's so hard to escape. It's so hard.
Oh my gosh.
See, and I don't think there's a way that your kid isn't going to, in any situation, blame you for something.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, there's going to be something where your kid, because of who they become as an individual, questions what you did. And I think it comes down to just raising them in an environment where we can be accepting of having different ways of doing things and allowing them to be okay with that, so that when they look back and say, oh, I don't know if I like what they did there, they're like, well, that's how they chose to do it. And that's fine.
And they're human.
And when you grow up showing them that you're human and apologizing for your mistakes and saying I'm human and saying I don't know what I'm doing but I'm trying, hopefully by the time they become an adult, they're like, yeah, well, mom has showed me all along she's human and that she makes mistakes. This lines up. She didn't know what she was doing, as opposed to being raised like a lot of us were raised, where like mom and dad's word is the final word, they're always right, and then you grow up and you're like, oh wait, they aren't, and then you have this like internal conflict. Renee Brown and Glennon Doyle did a fantastic podcast that I listened to a little while ago, and they were talking about this sort of thing and basically saying like, we all have problems, we focus on some things but maybe something else becomes an issue. How do you know that you've done a good job as a mom? And I think it was Renee Brown who answered it, and she was like, if I normalize therapy, if I normalize that I'm human and that it's okay to get help, then I've done my job. Because you're never going to raise a child who doesn't have problems, who doesn't have some type of trauma from something, who doesn't have an issue. But if you make your home and you make their whole family culture a safe space for being imperfect and for getting help, then I feel like you're going in the right direction.
There's a poem I remember reading in university. I only know the first couple lines, but that's all that matters. Is they fuck you up, your mom and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. And it's like, no matter what happens, just going through life fucks you up a little bit. Life is fucking chaotic and it's crazy and it's wonderful.
Look at our video guys nodding. I don't know if you're nodding about this.
the life lessons we are broadcasting, right?
But they do, and we will. But again, it's setting that foundation of saying, hey, people make mistakes, people have different ways about thinking about things, whatever, and that is okay. Like I know people, some of my friends, blame their parents for every little thing that goes wrong in their life, and I'm like, your parents love you so much. Like they didn't want to do that. They did, but they didn't want to make you feel that way. There needs to be a level of forgiveness in order to establish that, I think, forgiving foundation. Like Renee was saying earlier, we need to give ourselves grace. We need to be forgiving with ourselves first, and then with those close to us, and then that can extend into like greater lessons for our kids.
And I think it's important also to remember that a parent and a child is a two-way relationship. Oftentimes we're thinking of it as the parent puts everything down onto the child, but this is a two-way, like, interpersonal relationship. And so how you parent one child you could parent the other child the exact same way. It's going to be different, and they're going to have different experiences because there is like a personal level to it. Every child is different, every parent is different, and it's a two-way thing.
Well, as the mom of a neurodiverse kid, and I just wrote a post last week, and it gained some traction. It's hard to raise a neurodiverse child. Like it comes with its challenges. My son is in a regression right now because there's no structure from school. And I wrote about there's the before, the during, and the after of a dysregulated state. We're currently in a during state. And I miss my son. I miss seeing him laugh. I miss bedtime being easy. I miss him playing with his siblings and wanting to go outside and not sitting in a ball in the corner and crying. And a few people came at me and they were like, how dare you? How dare you not cherish your son for who he is all the time? It's not his fault that he's neurodiverse. It's not his fault that he's neurodiverse. You also don't know what you're going to get. When you become a mom, you expect all of your children are going to be born healthy and neurotypical, and like you don't prepare yourself for what's going to come. But I have a child who's neurodiverse, and then I have a 2-year-old who is easy as pie. Like she is so easy. And I have to balance those feelings that come with what it's like to raise a neurodiverse son and what it's like to raise an angelic daughter who cleans up after her brothers and she's only 2 years old. And there's a lot of guilt and struggles that come with that as well. So, you know, it's not my son's fault that he is the way he is. That is who he is, and I love him for it. But it makes my life as a mom a little bit harder, and I think it's fair to say that, although lots of people think
it's
not.
Oh my gosh.
Allowing space for both feelings, right?
Yeah.
I am allowed to grieve that parenthood looks different than I thought it would. I'm allowed to grieve that this stage is hard. You as a child are also allowed to grieve that this experience that looks the same affects you differently.
Yeah.
And it's the same with as we become adults, you know, like I had to get to a place where I valued my own needs and my own worth as much or more than, say, my mom's. You know, I went through a lot of different traumatic things, and so I spent a lot of time just trying to appease and do the right thing, and, you know, forgiveness and family over everything. And I got to a place where it was a codependent relationship where I did too much.
Yeah.
And I cared too much about that side and not my own. And I'm now at a place where I'm like, you're allowed to have your boundaries and your experiences and your feelings about things because you're human. I'm also allowed to have my experiences and my feelings, and I'm allowed to have boundaries based on what I need. And then it's going to be the same for my kids. That like if I do things that are too much, if I pry too much, if I care too much about things and it makes them uncomfortable, I allow them as children and human beings to say, that's not something I talk to you about.
Yeah.
That's not, and it's not a thing of they don't forgive me or they don't love me. It's just a thing of they get to have feelings, they get to have boundaries, and so do I.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, like I think of myself as like a cycle breaker, and it's like we've gone through this cycle of generations where, you know, the child feels like the parent is the ultimate, and then they go through all of it and then they put that on their child. But I'm like, no, like I'm done with that. Like you're allowed to have your feelings, I'm allowed to have mine, and so is my child.
Yeah.
It's not this like as soon as we become a parent, you're the be all end all.
Yeah.
Do you, sorry.
Oh,
No, I was just like, do you feel, you mentioned earlier, and I know a little bit about your background, that you had a tumultuous upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel like you're doing things radically different? Like, are you making intentional decisions every day to do things radically different than how you were raised? Or is it in only certain regards? Like, how does it impact your parenting just day to day?
So it's a lot of the small things. I mean, there's the big things like poverty. Like I grew up in poverty and I am not now living in poverty. And so there's a cycle that has been broken and I don't see that changing. So that would be like a big thing. But like when I think about our interpersonal relationships and the ways I carry myself around the house and the way I breathe and exhale or rage or don't rage or react to an accident that's happened, you know, I think about all the little reactions I have and all of that and all of the, so this thing happened, but am I going to make you feel guilty for making me sad, or are we just going to deal with the thing that happened and you made a mistake and you're going to be responsible for it, but you're not responsible for it because your job is to make mommy happy.
Yeah.
You're responsible for it because if you make a mistake, you clean it up and we do it together. And I'm not angry, but you still have to do it. And so I wouldn't say it's any like big, huge things, but it's in a lot of the really small interpersonal reactions.
And like the intentions.
And the intention and like the thought and then just stopping and going,
yeah.
let's just deal with it this way. And I like don't get it correctly all the time, make lots of mistakes, but I think it's the whole awareness and intention behind it, because I feel like in many ways I was sort of just along for the ride.
Yeah.
And, you know, as I grew up, whereas I try to be very intentional about what I say and what I do and how I parent in the small moments.
Yeah.
And they add up to a general,
Yeah.
this is how I feel when I'm around my mom.
Yeah.
Do you
This
guys-
is how I feel when I make a mistake.
Yeah.
Do you guys find that you're coaching your partners a lot to parent with that same kind of like, I'll call it gentle parenting approach? Like, I find my husband is a bit more firm, and I don't want to throw him under the bus. I love you. But like, I find I'm a bit more flexible than my partner is, and that causes some tension in our marriage as well when it comes to raising kids.
This is like a default parent thing because, and we just went through this. I was at my parents' place for almost a week, and so I did bath time and bedtime every night by myself. We come home, I'm like, oh, I can take a break now, like my husband's gonna do it. But of course, Milo is giving my husband a hard time at bedtime, and I can hear my husband like huffing and puffing and like, oh, Jesus Christ, like, blah, blah. So I'm downstairs like, okay, I guess I can't relax. I'm gonna go upstairs now and deal with this.
No below deck.
So I go upstairs and I was like, I said something that maybe in the moment wasn't appropriate, but I was like, as my husband was coming out, I went into my son's room and I'm like, Daddy has to go to work, because a lot of the time he does have to go to the hospital. So Daddy has to go to work, and so my husband leaves, and I was like, it's only with you that he does this, and my husband took it as like, oh, this is my fault.
Yeah.
But then I thought about it afterwards, and of course I did all the parenting things, but I'm in a position where I talk to freaking professionals all the time, and so I have these tools and tricks that I can deal with these situations. My husband does not, and so that's also a little bit of resentment. Like, regardless of this not being my husband's fault, I'm still now the one that has all these tools and like don't really feel like teaching you them.
Yeah.
So now when Milo gives us a hard time at bedtime, it's me that has to go in and do it all the time.
Me too.
And so
Yeah.
my husband felt bad, and he was like, this isn't my fault. I'm like, I'm not saying it's your fault, but the reality is that I'm the one that has to go in and like calm down the bedtime situation, and that sucks for me.
Yeah.
Regardless, I'm not saying it's your fault, but it still sucks, and I can still have these feelings and be pissed off right now. Like, and that's
It's not
it.
about blame and shame and guilt. It's about I'm
This is
feeling
the
this way, and it's just
situation.
hard.
Yeah.
No one's fault.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It fucking
But
sucks.
do you guys think it's because we have people like Dr. Becky that we follow and all of these influencers who work in the pediatric world, and we're following them, and then we carry this extra guilt that we need to like, we know the trauma that could come from this bedtime, that like we have to go in there and be the hero? Like, do you put
It
that
propagates
pressure
a
on
shame
yourself?
like constantly.
Yeah. No,
But at the same time, we're learning. But
Yeah.
See, I think for me anyway, I'm the one intaking the information. I intake it on a daily basis. Like you, I podcast, I talk to professionals all the time. I'm following those accounts.
Yeah.
I'm reading the books. I'm doing all that. And then I tell Shane, and then he soaks up the information, my husband. But then, when it comes down to it, because the default parent, I'm the default parent. My job allows me to be with the kids more, at home more, right? So because I am dealing with the kids more,
You're better.
Better, but I'm the one losing my patience.
Yeah.
So Shane comes in, and then he is like Mr. fucking nice guy, and he has so much patience,
That's
and I'm
us
like,
as well.
And
That's
he's
us as
not
well.
he's not as affected by when a shitstorm happens,
Yes.
because he has not been dealing with it
oh my god.
day in
His
and
window
day
of
out.
tolerance isn't here, right? It's like
Yes.
here. It's like I've been at work all day, ready for kid time, and
Yes.
it's like one more thing, and I'm gonna lose it.
Yeah.
And then you feel like a horrible person.
Yes.
Yes.
Because I'm the opposite. I'm not I'm the one that's like uptight, and he's just chill all the time. And I'm like, I want to be chill. I want to be the chill, fun person. I'm fun.
throw a bottle.
Yeah.
That is a huge trigger for me too, because I I have this vision of myself as a mom, and especially after like the shitstorm that we've gone through. And my husband works in corrections, so he works shift and he works long hours. So I do the mornings, I do, drop off breakfast time, drop them off at daycare, pick them up, do dinner, do bath time. And then as we're going to bed, my husband comes home, which is fine. Same thing.
But you're telling yourself it's fine. I can hear you,
but it's not.
Yeah, see?
So I work. And I worked since my daughter was 3 months old. I went back because I couldn't even take a full mat leave because I wanted an escape from being in that role all the time. So he comes home, and this literally happened this week. I was triggered. I was overstimulated. I was exhausted. Dinner time is a whole other stressor. Maybe we can have a whole episode on like how to feed your 4-year-old child. He's like so spicy and adamant, and it's just every night I'm doing it solo. So I'm putting them in bed, and it is a fight. They're jumping. They're completely ignoring me. I've lost all my parenting tactics. Everything's gone out the window. And my husband comes home. He takes Griffin, my 4-year-old, and Griffin is not eating dinner because he didn't want anything that was offered.
Was it beige enough?
And my husband comes out and he's like, Griffin would like to eat his dinner right now. I was like, that's it. Fuck this. I grabbed my phone. I grabbed my earbuds, my running shoes, and I just left the house in like an angry rage, and I listened to like my 90s hip hop and just walked for an hour.
I go to 90s
I was every so done. I was so done. But it is a perfect example of like, I should be doing this. You go. I know all of this. I have all the tools to navigate him being really, really difficult at times. Like I want to give to them, and I want to be the mom that I know I can be. But at that point in the evenings, I just fucking can't. And then you get in your head, and then all of the shoulds, all of the shame of being, vulnerable and not tending to your children the way that you want to. Explosion.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, my husband has so much patience. So happy for him. I also started to wonder, like, when my husband is taking over bath time and bedtime, and I can hear them from downstairs that it's a struggle. Why? And I call it partner guilt. Like, I feel guilty that I'm down here and my husband's having to deal with that by himself, but I do it all the time. And the thing is, and I think someone like messaged me in my DMs and they like suggested this, and I was like, yes, I am projecting my own like sensory overload and this situation being difficult onto my husband, because I have been doing kid stuff all week, like I've been doing it alone, and now that my husband's dealing with a difficult situation, I'm like, oh, I have to go in and help him because I feel guilty that he's doing it himself, when in reality he's been at work all week, he hasn't been dealing with kids, so he's like, this is fine, it's not that big of a deal, but I'm downstairs like, oh my god, this is terrible, I have to go help him, like, and that's what it is, it's partner guilt.
And I think it's also like this like internalized martyrdom too, where like I don't want to feel like it's my job to be there, or that I'm missing out on fun, or that I'm not helping with the tantrum, but like it's like this internalized martyrdom of like, it's my job as a woman, as a mother, to be the savior, to be the one who knows the thing, to be the one who's there for all the experiences, to be selfless and give of myself and not need anything. And it's like I logically don't want to be that person, and I fight against that, and I want to break, but inside I'm like, but maybe I should be there. Like, maybe, and it's like this internalized thing that like you're just constantly fighting it. You can't relax. Like you can't just be like, this is nice. It's literally impossible.
And it comes out in every way, like that martyrdom.
Yeah.
So like, hands up if your husband has more of a social life than you do.
No.
Oh,
Mine does.
I don't
Mine
know.
has
husband's
more.
an engineer.
My kids are
Look
older.
at you guys. Now
I
I'm
know.
see, this is something I gotta solve. Because in my group of friends, my
Yeah.
entire group of friends, our husbands, they have carried on with their social life like nothing has ever changed, and then it's an internalized thing. It's like, oh no, well the kids need me here, so it's like I opt out of social things. Because
that's gonna stop
right
now.
It will be stopping. I just finished my glass of wine. It's stopping. I can have another one.
So as practice, and this has been since my daughter was born, even through COVID, when we were not supposed to be going out and doing anything, like once a month, I have a night away with my girlfriends, not even with my husband. I feel like I'm gonna cry because I have this amazing group of.
We're going. What happened in? I don't know.
Oh wow. Okay. Can we?
I mean, we
like it.
B-roll footage, right?
Perfect.
Okay, but I need to
I'm
hear
gonna
about
eat
this
an
night.
olive.
Yeah.
So wait, when
Okay.
you say night away, you mean like
Hotel.
over the
Overnight?
night?
Overnight.
Over the midnight night into the morning, breakfast alone.
So usually it's like an afternoon
Okay.
into then an overnight, and then we like have coffee and breakfast, and we all go on our way. The last time it was 2 nights. We just went to my friend's cottage. That was our August getaway, but and we've been doing this for almost 2 years. Every month we go away for a night.
You and your husband?
No,
Friends.
I
Friends.
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 Okay.
No.
I was focusing on the wine. Completely missed it.
Thank you so much, Beth.
And in the beginning, I would grocery shop. I would take all the kids' clothes out, and I would like organize, and I would do all of the things. My husband was like, "Okay, cool. Like, I guess." we can do
Default
that."
parent.
Yeah, 100%. But then we went through a really dark part in our marriage after Zoe and through COVID, and but coming out of that, when we started communicating, I just stopped doing all of the things, and he just like filled the spot, and I trusted him to do like everything. Like I don't know what the kids eat when I'm gone. I know that their dad loves them. I know that he's an amazing dad. And they have the best time, and it's just like a normal thing now when I say like, oh, I'm going with my like call them my their Oz aunties, we're going away, and it's normal for my kids to see me going out. When at the beginning, when I was at home all day with 2 under 2, it was like they were freaking out because I was leaving, but I was like, this will get better. This they will learn this. They need time without me. I need time without them, and I come home, and now it's like it's a regular.
And then you don't have to think about it. Then you're like,
No,
I'm leaving
I'm
in
on.
peace, and it's so nice.
Yeah.
To just be able to get up and go. For us, like
Yes.
probably the first like 5 years of parenting, I think you might still be in there. Like there was definitely like an imbalance of who was going out when and resentment, and then like every time he'd be like, what do you think? I'd like give the eye roll and like sure, and then it would go back and forth, and we'd both be annoyed when the other one was going out. And then we just got to a point where we're like, no, we're not doing that.
both
Like,
think
if you want to go, like, you're going to go. And if I want to go, I'm going to go. There's going to be no guilt.
Yeah.
We're
And
going
you're
to do
so
it.
much
You're going to
better
figure
for
it
it.
out. I'm not planning the meals. I'm not picking
No.
the clothes.
No,
Like,
absolutely
you'll
not.
figure it out. And then, like, we have finally got to a place
Yeah.
where it's like we both have our time. But it took a while. Like,
Yeah.
you got to, like, find that balance and, like, what works. And when you have a shift worker or someone who works a lot of hours, like, it's even harder. But you, like, almost have to like plan it in.
Yeah, that's like
And we do.
inspiring.
Yes.
Like we've got a calendar, and we have his schedule for 2 years. So I'm like, August to September. Like these are the weekends that I'm going away with my girlfriends, and we have it until right now November planned. Like, it's
I feel like I need to give you credit for saying that your marriage went through a rough patch,
it
because
was awful.
I
It
do
was bad.
not think people talk about it enough, and I think it happens all the time. Like,
Yeah.
we're starting to open up about motherhood being hard, but fuck, marriage is hard,
Yeah.
especially when you have little kids.
Yeah.
maybe we're the odd ones out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you guys struggle in your marriages?
No, I texted my husband last night. I was like, maybe you shouldn't come home right now.
Yeah.
He was on his way home.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you should like make a stop and then come home.
Yeah.
Like, give me some time because I'm mad now.
Yeah.
But my question for Libby, because I think you have the oldest kids out of all of us.
Yep.
How
How old
old
are they,
is your youngest?
I'm ready. 6.
6.
Oh,
Okay.
In my mind, he's 3, but
Okay.
so
So
time 6.
someone once told me not to seriously consider divorce until your youngest was 5.
Okay.
Do you feel like it has gotten easier as your kids have gotten older in marriage? Do you feel like maybe the struggles are different, but do you feel like there is more patience, more time for eggplant, like all of that stuff?
Most certainly.
There's more
Yes.
eggplant?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
like I feel like I'm in the glory years of my parenting, which can sometimes be hard for my content because I know and I feel the things that many of the people are going through, but I'm like, I don't feel that right now.
Yeah.
Like my son being 6 and my daughter being 8 is fantastic.
Wow.
Like me and my husband have so much more time for alone time.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to leave. It's so much easier to even do things with the kids. It's not as stressful going on day trips, doing all the things, packing the things, remembering the things. It's like, oh, we forgot. Let's just
We're
buy
all
burgers.
here
It's
like-
not I have to like pack like the toddler snacks and the
I have
bottle and
wipes
all the
in my
things,
purse.
and then you're mad that
And I don't even know
thinking
why.
about it, and you have to remember it, and like all the resentment. It's easier for me to go out in the evenings or like bedtime. Before it used to be a thing of like, you've been on night shift for like 4 nights in a row. Like I am checking out of bedtime, and I'm like annoyed.
Yes.
And now it's like, oh, you want to go with your friends and miss bedtime? It's fine. I'll send them upstairs with their pajamas on. They'll brush their teeth. I'll go and kiss them goodnight and read the book. Like it's easier. Like it is just like it takes less time. It takes less energy. Like there are different challenges. There's definitely different challenges, but the marriage part.
Are you
definitely
becoming the
easier.
old lady in the checkout line that's like looking at the chunky toes, telling people like
100%,
to cherish
and I'm
it?
ashamed of it. Like I see toddler videos on Instagram, or like I see them and I'm like, their little cheeks. Like I remember after my son being like, I'm never having babies, I'm not doing this, it's not enjoyable. And like I would hate all the comments, and now I'm like, it's so much energy to be like,
Yeah. But
like I can give them like I'm like, yes it is hard, but inside I'm like, maybe I can.
isn't that how
I think there's so much beauty in that
Yeah.
alone. So, like, from our perspective, whoever has young kids and being pregnant again, like it's so frustrating for somebody to like tell you something, tell you how to feel, but then same side of the opposite side of the coin, there's beauty in the fact that as time goes, you can look back on even the hard parts sometimes and romanticize it, or just kind of forget. And just it's nice that as humans, a lot of the time, not all the time, a lot of the time, when we look back on things, we remember the positive things.
I remember taking videos of my kids playing and logically thinking, I feel like having a breakdown right now, but this is beautiful. I logically know this is beautiful. I don't feel like it, but one day I might. And I now will look back on videos and like be a bubble of tears for how beautiful it is, and their giggles and the way they're running and the mess they're making, and I'm like, oh. Do I remember the tantrum they had 5 minutes before? Nope.
Cleaning up that
Do
mess.
I remember cleaning up the mess? Nope. Do I remember not sleeping for 3 months straight on end before and wanting to do bad things to people? I don't. All I see is the little cheeks and like the little mess and the giggles, and I'm like, it's beautiful.
And that's the crazy part of all of this is we started it off talking about how hard motherhood is, how nobody talks about it, and then you turn into the old lady that's just like fucking cherish this, like, you know what I mean?
Like now we can be old ladies with wisdom. If we don't
Yeah.
forget, we don't allow ourselves to forget, and then we don't write off somebody's experience. And we know that because we're talking about it more, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like we are that old lady who thinks it's beautiful, but then hopefully
everyone be old like me one day.
But then we have more space and empathy, and hopefully more than women that came before.
We're changing the conversation.
I can have empathy for how hard it is, but you will find it beautiful one day.
There it is. And that's why we all, when our kids are asleep, we're like swishing through those pictures of them, and Google gets me all the time with those flashbacks. I'm an Android person. I don't know about you iPhone people. I don't understand Apple. I can't get it. Maybe that's why I'm not as successful as you guys, because like I don't have that Apple plug in me. But like Google will be like 4 years ago today, and my baby is like learning how to crawl, and I'm like, oh fuck, let's go do it. Let's make
Well,
it.
it's worse when you've had when you've had a rough day with your kid, and then like he hasn't been listening, and you've maybe been a little short with him a couple times, and then he's in bed and he's sleeping, and you're like, well, just sneak in and give him like a quick kiss.
Every night.
Every night. Yeah, I always sneak in there all the time. Just one more kiss. I'm sorry.
So hard.
How old is
William turns 4 tomorrow.
Oh,
yeah,
so exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so how old are all of our kids? I feel like this is the perfect.
I'm the old lady with a 6 and 8.
Your cane's in the back.
Libby came in on a walker.
Mine are 4 and 2.
And Milo's basically 4.
Yeah, so 6, 4.5, and 2.
4 and 2.
How do we find age 4?
I love it.
It's so much easier.
I
Yeah.
enjoy
Like
four.
like
I
Libby
love
was
kindergarten,
saying, it
we've
gets
gone
easier.
kindergarten.
Like, I already
Yes.
find 4
Yes.
to be
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
easier.
It's
I know, and now I'm
Yeah.
getting back into like the harder stuff again.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is easy
You know what,
now with
though?
William, and now I'm like, great.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was am I the only one that has 3? Yeah.
You're crazy.
Okay. I was obsessed with my 3rd baby. Like, obsessed. I don't know if it's because I was medicated through my 3rd pregnancy and I wasn't before, but man, I cherished every moment. And I know that sounds so, like, stereotypical of, like, what you're supposed to want, but I had her during the pandemic. I fully expected to, like, spiral. And again, I thank my meds for being there. And there's also a lot of guilt because I really enjoyed her and I still enjoy her, and I had a really hard time with my first 2, but the 3rd time around I'm like, oh shit, look at those little toes and like look at her dimples, and I notice it all. And she's also my last. My husband had a vasectomy 2 months after she was born, so I feel like I knew that was it, and I had to just, and I'm obsessed with her.
Like, well, this time around I'll get to go back on my medication. So like with William, I had no idea what was wrong. They tried to give me antidepressants, nothing was working. I ended up being diagnosed with ADHD and then figuring out that a stimulant worked.
Diagnosed this week.
Oh yeah, have you tried medication?
Not yet.
Because it's amazing.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go back on it. But this time around, I'm hoping I can start my medication day after my C-section.
By medication, do you mean antidepressants?
So I was on an antidepressant and anti-anxiety medication as well as a stimulant.
Do you mind me asking why you didn't stay on during your pregnancy?
They told me, especially the stimulant, not healthy during
What about the
pregnancy.
antidepressants?
They said that I could, but there is a chance that something could, and
Yeah.
you're like, and then when you're anxiety ridden like I am, I'm like,
yeah, I
no,
didn't
off
want
of it.
to, but I knew if
Yeah.
I didn't, I might not be
yeah.
here.
I'm
So,
to the
yeah.
point now, like being pregnant, not being on any medications. I know I can no longer be unmedicated in my life.
Yeah.
Like I have to be
Yeah.
medicated.
Yeah.
Like I take all those, and then I do kind of self-medicate a little bit. I don't really drink wine much. It's more of the THC that helps me sleep, helps me kind of calm down in the evenings.
100%.
Yeah, that I miss too.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
I have none of my tools to help me.
Thank you so much. I think. Did you guys have fun?
Yeah.
Was it
Thank
good?
you
Was
so
it
much.
meaningful? Do you feel?
I feel
good?
great.
Do you feel good about it?
Yes.
Always.
I feel like I talk about
Do you
my
feel
feelings
old?
all the time.
Yeah.
Like,
This is-
I mean, I
this
do
is what I
feel
do.
old.
Yeah.
I didn't want you to.
It needs to
I
happen
know.
more.
No, I'm super
More
happy
conversation,
to learn about, like, whenever I hear somebody else sharing their experience, even if it is so different from what I'm going through, what I have gone through, I get so much from it. Like, if I can glean one thing, and I find that I enter a conversation selfishly in that I like take more than I feel like I give, and I learn from so many things, and I appreciate you guys all sharing.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. You freaking made me cry, man.
I can't control it anymore. It just comes out.
It's fine. You guys, thank you so much for joining us on the kickoff episode of Moms Unleashed. We are going to have a bunch of links to mental health supports in Southern Ontario. So if you're struggling, you can reach out to those supports. St. Joe's Hospital in Hamilton was a huge help for me. I accessed their women's clinic when I was struggling during my second pregnancy, and they helped get me set up with everything that I needed very quickly, and I really appreciated that. So feel free to reach out to any of us. I think we're very open to talk about our struggles on Instagram and social media. Give us a follow, reach out, drop some comments down below if you want to share, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you.